Section 5.1 is titled Inequalities. This is basically an intro to inequalities. Unit 5 is all about them, and we'll spend several days solving them, graphing them, writing inequalities based off of situations. But the first day, day 1, is just kind of an introduction. So the standard, just one standard for the whole unit is 7AF3, and again it's being able to solve inequalities, but if you look down at the bullet points, you can see also representing real-world problems, graphing, interpreting. So a lot can be done with inequalities, so we spend an entire unit on it. And the definition is an inequality. And an inequality is a mathematical sentence that compares quantities that are not equal. So instead of an equal sign, now we have the inequality symbol, and there are 4 of them. And they're in this order. Less than is first here. Then we have greater than, less than or equal to, and greater than or equal to. So again, an inequality symbol, a mathematical sentence, compares 2 items or quantities that are not equal. So no more equal signs, we'll just be using inequalities again for a while. Next, I need you to write this table down into your notes. This is the inequalities table, and this helps us with words and which words indicate different inequalities. We will be reading some sentences here in the next set of examples, and you have to determine which inequality symbol you should be using, so we want to make sure we're using the right one. So the less than symbol, this is just less than. We say is less than or is fewer than. And if you see the words is less than or is fewer than, then you're talking about the less than symbol. Then you have greater than, so is greater than, is more than, or exceeds. All of those words indicate the greater than symbol. The third one here is less than or equal to, is how that's read. Less than or equal to. So that's the first bullet point, is less than or equal to. We also have is no more than or is at most. And this gets a little bit tricky because the words more and most, you probably want to say greater. But because we're saying it's no more than or it's at most, it means it can't go over that number. So that's why it's less than or equal to, because it can't go over the number. Finally, then we have greater than or equal to. And this is similar to the previous one because we can also say is no less than or is at least. And again, you're seeing the words less and least, but you're using a greater than symbol because it means that it can't be any smaller than a particular number. And if it can't be any smaller than a particular number, that means it can be greater than it. So here are some examples where you're asked to write an inequality for the sentence. So please write the 3 sentences down in your notes. If you'd like to pause the video, you can do that. And then we're going to kind of translate the sentence into an inequality. So number 1 says that the DVD costs more than $15. You're going to need a variable, you're going to need an inequality symbol, possibly some operations. But so the first thing we're trying to figure out is what is our unknown? Well, our unknown is the cost of the DVD. So the cost of the DVD is going to be X. X is going to represent the cost of the DVD. We also have the more than symbol. So we're going to have the greater than symbol. It says more than, so we're going to use greater than. And the number we're trying to be greater than is 15. So we would write X is greater than 15. That means that the cost of the DVD is more than $15. Number 2, we have a dog weighs less than 50 pounds. So our unknown is the dog's weight. So X represents the dog's weight. We're going to use the less than symbol. We see the words, you actually see the words less than, and you can go back and look in that chart that we just wrote down. But the dog's weight is less than 50 pounds. So we would say X is less than 50. Remember that with inequalities, our answer is not just one number. Our answer is several numbers. Obviously, you cannot list every number that's less than 50. That would be decimals, fractions, we'd get into the negatives. There are lots of numbers that are less than 50. And instead of listing all of them, which you couldn't possibly do, we just write the inequality. So remember that the answers to inequalities, there are several of them. So any number less than 50 could be the dog's weight. Number 2, we have a height requirement, or 3, the height requirement is greater than or equal to 40 inches. So our unknown here is the height requirement. And when you see is greater than or equal to, that's the greater than or equal to symbol. Oops. And I'm just going to kind of underline here, greater than or equal to 40 inches. So we would write X is greater than or equal to 40. Next, we're going to look at some situations where you're actually going to compare two quantities and determine if it's true or false. So I'm going to give you a value, a number, and you're going to plug it into the inequality and state whether or not it is true. So for number 4, the inequality is 2t plus 8 is greater than 7. And I don't want you to get hung up on the notation. I just have a semicolon here to separate the value. I want to know if t equals -1, is this inequality true? So you're going to take that -1 and you're going to plug it in for t. So 2 times -1 plus 8, is that greater than 7? Order of operations, we do 2 times -1, and we do -2 plus 8, and we get 6 is greater than 7. This is not true. 6 is not greater than 7, so we write false. For that given value, -1, the inequality is not true. If you'd like to pause the video and try number 5, we have p minus 42 is less than or equal to -2. And the value I'm wanting you to plug in is 40. So you're going to take the 40 and plug it in for p. So we have 40 minus 42, and we're checking to see if that's less than or equal to -2. 40 minus 42 is -2, so we get -2 is less than or equal to -2. And the less than or equal to sign indicates that the two numbers can be equal, and they are. -2 does equal -2. This symbol with the line under it is really two options. It can either be less than or it can be equal to, so this is true. If p equals 40, then p minus 42 is less than or equal to -2. Now we need to write some things down about graphing, and I do want you writing all of this down. We review this almost every day as we graph, but this is the only time I'll have you write it down. So remember how a basic number line works. The further left you go on a number line, the smaller the number is. The other important piece is that when we graph on a number line, we want to make sure that the variable is on the left. And I'm actually going to highlight this because this is something I require you to do once we start solving equations. Your variable has to be on the left-hand side. Next, when we graph, we will circle the number on the number line, and we either use a closed dot, which looks like this, or we use an open dot, which looks like that. We use a closed dot for the greater than or equal to and the less than or equal to sign. It means we're including that point. Because of the or equal to piece, because of that line underneath, that's why we color in the dot, because we're also including that number. We use an open dot when we just have less than and greater than, because we're not including the number. Then we're going to shade in the appropriate direction. So if we're talking about numbers that are less than, we shade to the left in the smaller direction. And if we're talking about numbers that are greater than, we shade to the right. In parentheses here, it does say to follow the arrow. And I'll tell you what that means as we go through some examples. So again, if you didn't get all this written down, please pause the video and finish writing before you go on. So graph the inequality. The first thing you're going to put on your number line is the number that we're focusing on, and that is a 6. After you plot the 6, you're also going to plot a number smaller and a number larger in their appropriate positions. Notice it's 5, 6, 7, not 7, 6, 5. Number line goes from left to right, smallest to largest. Next, we're going to determine if we put an open dot at 6 or a closed dot. And you'll notice that we're just talking about numbers greater than 6. There's no line underneath, so we're not actually including 6, so we have an open circle. Please make sure when you are graphing inequalities that I can determine the difference between your opened and your closed circles. The last part is the shading on the graph. Because we're talking about all of the numbers, A, that are greater than 6, we want to shade in this direction. We want to shade where the numbers are that we're talking about. And again, it's all the numbers that are greater than 6. Another thing you can think about, as long as your variable is on the left, if you look at this inequality symbol and kind of treat it like an arrowhead, you can see that it's pointing to the right, and we also shaded to the right. So as long as your variable is on the left, you can look at the inequality symbol to help tell you which direction to shade. And that's it. That's how you graph an inequality. Number 7, we have x is less than or equal to -1. So again, we're going to plot -1 on the number line. We want one number smaller, and we want a number bigger. Remember, with negatives, the further left you go, the smaller the number is, and with negative numbers, the bigger the digit, the smaller the value. So the next step is determining whether or not we want to include -1. We do want to include -1 because the symbol is less than or equal to, and since we say or equal to, we want to include -1. And now we're talking about all the numbers less than or equal to that, so we want to shade to the left. The numbers in this direction are less than -1. Again, because the variable is on the left, you can look at the inequality symbol and treat it like an arrowhead. It looks like it's pointing to the left, so we shaded to the left. Number 8, we have y is greater than or equal to 5. If you'd like to pause the video here, see if you can solve this one on your own, and then check your solution with mine. So we're going to plot 5 on the number line first, also 4 to the left, and 6 to the right. This again is going to be a closed circle because we're saying greater than or equal to. And because we're talking about the values greater than 5, we're going to shade to the right. Again, treating the inequality like an arrowhead, it's pointing to the right, so we shade to the right. Remember, that only works if your variable is on the left. And now let's go the other direction. I'm going to give you the graph, you write the inequality. So when you do this again, always put your variable on the left. Always put your variable on the left. And this will be something I'm requiring you to do. So anytime you're given a graph and you're asked to write the inequality, you just write a variable and you write the number of focus, which in this case is -2. As long as the variable is on the left, You put the number on the right. Now all you have to determine is this symbol. You see that it shades to the left, so we want to point it to the left. And we are not including -2, so we don't draw a line underneath it. So we're talking about all the x's, or all the numbers that are less than -2. And you can see on this number line, continues on forever in that direction, would be all the numbers less than -2. I think this is the last example. Again, we want the variable on the left, so when writing the inequality, we're going to write x, and we're going to write a 3. Now all we have to focus on is the sign, the symbol. Here we're shading towards the right, so we're talking about greater than, and because the 3 has a closed circle, it's greater than or equal to. So again, we're talking about all the values, all of the x's, or all of the numbers that are greater than or equal to 3. In class, we will work on worksheet 5.1.